In Walmart's Who'Knewville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
In today's episode, we sit down with Brian Kight to talk about something every coach says they value, but very few actually build: a staff and team that can tell the truth and receive it. Not the comfortable truth, not the filtered version, but the real thing that makes teams stronger and keeps small issues from turning into big problems. BK brings years of work with high school, college, and professional programs, and he doesn't waste time with cliches. He goes straight into communication gaps that hold staffs back, why honesty gets lost inside a season, and what it takes to create an environment where feedback is normal instead of rare. With the transfer portal, constant movement, and the pressure to win now, coaches don't have the luxury of slow cultural development. You need clarity, trust, and honesty from day one. BK lays out a clear approach to help coaches build that standard and model it in a way their staff and players can follow. This conversation isn't about slogans, it's about the behaviors that drive performance and the discipline required to earn what you want in this profession. Let's get into it.
Every coach that was coaching coached through some window where something very big, very important, very meaningful in the game changed. To think for some reason the era in which you coach was some era where nothing was allowed to change, to me that's just not understanding the game that you're coaching in. It's just not understanding, let alone understanding the nature of the world.
Welcome back for another episode of the Coaching Coordinator Podcast, and I'm excited to kick our off season off on our flagship podcast here with Brian Kight, who's done, I believe it's 45 episodes with us. We used to do this, I think we did it 3 seasons in a row, 15 episodes apiece, really digging into things.
'Tis the season for all your holiday favorites, like a very Jonas Christmas movie and Home Alone on Disney+.
Should I burn down the joint? I don't think so.
Then Hulu has National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
We're all in for a very big Christmas treat.
All of these and more streaming this holiday season. And right now, save big with our special Black Friday offer. Bundle Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 1 year. Savings compared to current regular monthly price. Ends 12/1. Offer for ad-supported Disney Plus Hulu bundle only. Then $12.99 a month or then current regular monthly price. 18 plus terms apply.
It's great to have you back here, Brian, and I'm excited for, what we're going to talk about today.
Man, when I heard you say welcome to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast, and the thought went right through my head of how many episodes have we actually done? Literally thinking while you're talking, I'm like, how many times have we done this? I feel like and you're right, it is somewhere around that number. It's a lot. It's been a while, but we've done a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we get going, I know a lot of our coaches follow you and what you do. We've probably not done this. I think the last time would have been pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been 5 years. Catch us up on what's going on with you and daily discipline and all the things you're doing.
Yeah, man. Well, if we're talking pandemic or pre-pandemic, that feels like about 3 lifetimes ago at this point. It feels like 3 versions of Earth ago, not just lifetimes, right? So we've got, obviously it's been really interesting. I think since Focus 3, right? We've been on the same path and really working on the behavior skills and the discipline and daily discipline it's been amazing. It's been awesome and it's been growing. We've got the daily discipline community. We've got the daily discipline journal, in addition to the free daily discipline email that we're doing, just building a community of people, not just in the sports side, and frankly, not even all on the professional side. People just wanting to strengthen discipline in the traditional sense, right? Not the compliance and obedience and military parental version of discipline, but the true version of discipline, the ability to have power over yourself, the ability to control yourself for whatever it is that you're wanting to do. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of importance in that athletics, both for coaches to be able to have their own discipline, right, to lead and coach their staff the way they want, and then teaching players discipline as well. And so, working with coaches all over the country, high school, pro, college, got a bunch of teams right now in the race and a bunch of coaches and staffs that we're working with in the playoff race, competing for a playoff spot and championships, which is super fun this time of year. Got a bunch of others who are trying to figure out where in this coaching carousel everybody's going to go and what we're going to do and how it's going to happen. And so while I don't envy their positions with this crazy calendar that is going on in the college football world, it is a lot of fun trying to work with all of these guys and help them figure out, where they want to be, what they want to be doing, where they can go out and succeed, who's doing what, because the landscape of football is changing right now, and it's really exciting. And I think maybe one of the things, maybe kickstarting, just I'll offer unsolicited, if you will. And I talk with all the coaches that I work with, I talk about this, right? Where, a change hits, whether it's high school, it's college, NFL, whatever it is. A change hits, and you don't hear a ton of coaches like celebrating all of the change. Every now and then you will, right? You'll either hear kind of silence, right? And then behind closed doors, they'll complain about it or get frustrated or express resistance or whatever it happens to be. But you will hear a lot of kind of hemming and hawing and, in the public about all this different stuff with the changing, landscape of stuff. And one of the things I remind every coach that I work with is this. Why would you think that the era in which you coached football would be the era where nothing changed and football was fixed during your coaching window, right? Like when you joined the game, like they used to play without face masks.
Right.
And then it changed. And then they put face masks on. And then people didn't have like the forward pass very often. And then there was a forward pass every now and then. And then the pads changed. And then you were allowed to hit guys in the head and wear the stickum all over your hands. And then they kind of took that off, right? And then they started protecting the quarterback a little bit, but they still let him just get crushed, right? And so the point being, like, at which era, when you say, football's changed and, it used to be good, my question is always, at which era would you like to go back to and choose for when football was quote unquote right? Right? Because every coach that was coaching coached through some window where something very big, very important, very meaningful in the game changed. And for me to think that for some reason, the era in which you coach was some era where nothing was allowed to change, to me, that's just not understanding the game that you're coaching in. It's just not understanding let alone understanding the nature of the world. And so, yes, the changes are happening, but if you coached 30 years ago, look at the amount of change you went through if you started coaching 30 years ago. Like, significant. But if you had coached 30 years before that, it might even be more significant. So, of course, over the last 60 years, football has changed a ton, and it's going to continue to evolve and change. The last thing we want to do is be in a sport that is too slow to evolve and misses. Football has never been more popular. Football has never been more fun. Football has never been more lucrative for everybody involved. It's never had a bigger platform, right? It's never been more dominant in terms of sport in America. It's like football is in a great position. Of course, it has its issues, but I don't know. Would you trade football's issues for baseball's issues? I don't know that I would. So we're having a ton of fun. Frankly, one of the things that I'm really well known for talking about is opportunity and adversity, right? And those things that look like opportunity are often always hiding a significant amount of adversity. And those things that look like big adversity are hiding a lot of opportunity. And so for anybody right now who wants opportunity, it is all over the place. But you can't be complaining about what's going on. You got to be diving into what's happening. But there is a world of opportunity for any coach who's willing to take on some of this adversity. And it's the same stuff we ask our players to do. So I think we ought to be going first.
Yeah. Such a good point about the change. I mean, I think about, I'm thinking while you're talking 30 years, like from when I started coaching, not playing, like coaching. And I don't think there were face masks on the helmets back then.
The single bar, like the Miami Dolphins kicker, right? Back in the day.
That's right. So it is a game of change, and we see that happen all the time. And, I think that's something we have to deal with. I think we have a hard time because sometimes the change hits us when maybe we weren't ready for it. You just look at the coaching profession and what goes on in your career, and from, you expect to be retained to the coach you were with is gone, and like, boy, I wasn't playing in this.
Yep.
But that's the reality of it, and that's what you have to deal with. And, this is a time of year, before we got going, I said, this is the time of year to apply DMGB. Doesn't matter, get better. 0-10, 15-0. you're moving on from both of those quickly because now the season is changing and it's time to write that next chapter in your book of what you're doing as a coach.
Yeah. Answer's the same way either way, right? Whether you were 0-10, whether you were 15-0 with a state championship, a national championship, or somewhere in between, you celebrate the season, you learn from it, you appreciate what that season did and gave, you take a big deep breath, and then you have to go figure out how to get better. That's it. Because if we're not going to do that, what are we going to do? I think people hear doesn't matter, get better. And I had somebody ask me this the other day. I was working with a basketball program and I taught doesn't matter, get better. And somebody came up afterward and they say, but you're saying take no time to celebrate or appreciate what you just did. Just go out, compete, don't reflect on it, and just go back and just go practice again or go get better again. And it's like, well, no, I understand when you hear something like doesn't matter, get better, and you like isolate the doesn't matter part of it. But that's kind of like looking at the human body and like isolating the heart and being like, well, if you just have a heart, you're good. It's like, well, no, a heart without lungs doesn't survive. Okay. Like, lungs without a heart doesn't survive. A heart and lungs without a brain doesn't survive. So the doesn't matter, get better isn't something that we decouple, right? The point being, the doesn't matter point is referring to does 10-0, so does 0-10 or 15-0, do either one of those justify me saying, I don't need to improve from here, or I don't need to go do anything from here, or I'm good, I can kind of stop? No, it doesn't justify. Doesn't matter, the doesn't matter portion of that. One, it can't just be isolated and pulled out and evaluated on its own. It doesn't matter. Because of course, it does matter. What we're talking about is it doesn't matter for your next step of improvement. Now, you could take your time to celebrate. I mean, frankly, if you got your ass kicked all year, like you need to take a big deep breath, right? Take your month, your 6 weeks, whatever your time is. You take your big deep breath, recompose yourself, right? Wash that stink off you, right? Get your stitches, clean up your bruises, take your deep breath, and then get back to work, okay? It means that's your answer when you step back in. It doesn't mean that there's no recovery or appreciation or gratitude or you don't take a vacation. It just means that when it comes time to step back in, we're not stepping back in with status quo. We're not stepping back in with, oh, now my momentum is just going to take over and carry on for me, or I've arrived, as sometimes we like to say. Coaches, especially off-season, Keith, so many times coaches think, this is another thing that I just talk with, all the coaches I work with in the SEC and ACC and Big Ten, I talk with these, we work with it all the time because there's so many myths and coachisms that hit, that there's momentum from the last season carrying over to next season. No, there's not. There's not momentum. You might have some momentum on the recruiting trail, right? You might have some momentum maybe with some donors or fundraisers who are helping out your program, right? At the college or the high school level. Now you might have some momentum with that. But there's no momentum that carries over from wins and losses from one season to wins and losses in another. It's all over the place. So we can't think that somehow because we went 0-10 that we're going to go 0-10 again, or that we went 15-0 that now we know how to win, or because we went from 5-5 to 7-3 that the next year we're going to take another step up. Like we're going to be progressive. No, you could fall flat on your face and go 3-7. Anybody who's ever coached, that's happened to you. Right. So this idea that somehow this momentum carries over. So to me, doesn't matter, get better. And we can kind of break down some of the teaching points if we want. But to me, when I'm talking about doesn't matter, get better, is I'm talking about when it comes time to answer and we are going to step back into some kind of activity again. Okay. When you have your decompress time, take your decompress time. When it's time to get back into the activity, what's the answer? Don't look at your past results. Doesn't matter. Get better. Right? Like that's the thing. That's it. And you look at at the people who embody that really well, right? Your Tom Brady's, your Peyton Manning's, your Ed Reed's, your J.J. Watt's. J.J. Watt never played in the Super Bowl, right? I don't even know how many playoff games J.J. won, but that guy had a doesn't matter, get better mindset. He's like, yeah, it didn't work out last year. Took his off-season break, and he's like, all right, time to prepare for the next season. Doesn't matter, get better. I'm not changing or lowering my prep because last year was disappointing or because last year I was the NFL MVP. Doesn't matter, get better. He went and attacked it. That's what doesn't matter, get better is really about. It's not about not appreciating. It's about determining what your answer is when it comes time to work again.
That's a huge point because what goes right along with that, and I think what coaches need to be good at, especially this time of the year, two things. One, reflection and really digging into it, not the surface level and not pointing the finger for what went well or what went wrong, And then seeking feedback. I think that feedback is so important. You're going to have an idea what went right and wrong in your reflections, but how does that mesh with the experience of the other people who are a part of it? Because that's a reality too. Whether, if they perceived it, you have to deal with it. You can't say, well, that's your perception and walk away. It's getting that feedback, and you have to, that's not always the easiest thing, especially when things don't get right, to sit down and give feedback and see, okay, what can we do with this? Where do we go from here? I mean, that stuff goes into the get better part.
You're going to get me preaching and all fired up here, Keith, right? Let's push the reflection piece back just a second, and let's go to the second piece that you mentioned there in terms of the feedback and, as a coach, how you get the information for your program to improve, right? Beginning with how you need to improve, staff needs to improve, and then obviously the team needs to improve. So let me lay out a couple things. Number one is, we might have talked about this in some versions with previous episodes and conversations that we've had, and I know that we've talked about this privately, but the number one dynamic that has the biggest effect on a team's performance, that gets the least amount of attention, is the staff culture. One, because so much of the culture work, most of it, if not all of it, gets directed at who? Players. Player culture, player culture, player culture. All right, players got to be, you got to have a team, player-led culture, and you got to be team, and you got to be accountable, and seniors got to do this, and all of that. So all these culture messages go to the players, and it cuts short the staff standards in culture. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Number two, and every coach knows this, the standards have to apply to the people who set them. The highest standard has to be exhibited by the coaches. And that's just not always the case. And way more maybe than we acknowledge, because we're putting attention onto the other stuff. Here's the dynamic that happens. The dynamic that happens is in football, and not just in football, but in sports, right? Particularly with a group of men in a coaching staff, they stop telling the head coach the truth. I don't even have to explain that, because if you've ever worked on a football staff, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, when you're working for a head coach, that you have to decide, just like everybody else does, how much you're going to say to them. And if you're a head coach and you're like, I'm open to the truth, I would respectfully tell you, odds are you don't. Now, listen, there are coaches out there who do and who are. So if you are one of those coaches, I want to be like, man, I want to celebrate you and reinforce and encourage. But if your first knee-jerk response is, oh, I'm sure my guy's telling me the truth. I got an open door policy, I've told him. I would just respectfully tell you, there's a really good chance that you're not getting the truth the way you think you are. Because if you're hard to talk to, if you shoot ideas down, guys don't want to rock the boat. And sometimes you might think, by the way, I'm easy to say talk to, but guys come from other places. They've had other experiences with other head coaches, and they bring their experience with other head coaches to you. So unless you have a crystal clear standard, it is part of your culture, and you are having an open, honest conversation, and your staff is telling you very difficult, very uncomfortable disagreements with you, and telling you where you are screwing up and where you are making mistakes, there's a good chance that you are not hearing truth that is affecting your program from your staff. So I believe, Keith, two things. One, the most important thing that you can do in the off season, regardless of what position that you're in, if you are a volunteer D-line coach, if you are a head coach or anything in between, the best thing you can do in the off season is commit yourself and your staff to being the best truth telling and best truth receiving staff in America. Because here's my question. What benefit is there to the staff of not being great at telling the truth and not being great at hearing the truth? How does that help your program?
None at all.
And yet, the amount of things that go unsaid, unaddressed, and I say that because of this. If we wait, Keith, until we get done with the season, and then we want to come back and we want to reflect, and now we want to ask the question, and now we want to start telling the truth, what happens? Look what's happened if we've held to something, and then now we want to come back.
Right.
One, we're talking about issues that happened months ago. So now we're debating over how it actually played out. Two, we don't even really remember exactly how it happened. Three, the people who've been holding it have been kind of festering in that for a while. Four, it's very hard for you to take responsibility for something that happened a while ago because now you can brush it off a little faster and easier. We're in a really difficult place. If I am giving you this feedback or you're giving me this feedback, You're like having to convince me as an assistant coach of something I having a difficult time remembering. Now it's harder for me to trust what you're saying because there's a gap between it. It's like trying to coach a player on something they did in week 4 with no film at the end of the season. Remember week 4 when you were the safety? Do you remember how many times you drifted off the hash? And then remember how many times you bit on the run fake when it was just a play action way too hard? No, coach, I don't really remember that. Right? Like, not really. I kind of generally. And then you want to have like a very real conversation with me about it. And we're going to like, from week 4, that's what we're doing when we do these like end of year reflection things.
Right.
So I'm all for an end of year reflection, but not in lieu of and in place of the highest possible standard of speaking the truth and hearing the truth real time throughout the entire season. Otherwise, honestly, like it might create more problems than it solves.
Yeah. Well, I do think the end of the season maybe can get a little bit deeper because you have the time to dig into that. I do think you want to be able to do that kind of evaluation and reflection, feedback throughout the season. So that whole idea of tell me the truth, and I know you work with a number of programs. I'm sure you see this on the business side, the education side, everywhere, right? This is universal. How do you set that up? So you have that in your culture. Tell me the truth. What's the practical way to do it?
Let's make it really simple, okay? I'll put myself in the role of a head coach because it needs to come from the head coach. The head coach, or at least the head coach needs to be the one to set it because, obviously if you're a coordinator and you're trying to set that for the staff, you're not deciding all of the staffs. You can suggest it, but I'll occupy the role of the head coach so that I can talk about, hey, if you're the one setting it, this is what it looks like. If you're not the head coach, you can hear this and you can do this, but you can't, and you're in all likelihood not gonna be able to set this as the programs. But maybe you could do it on your side of the football. You can suggest it. You can have a conversation with your head coach about it. Play this episode for them. Write it down. Come and present it, whatever you want. Here's what I would do. I would grab my entire staff, right? I wouldn't have players first. I would want this with the players. I would do this with the staff. And I would say, hey, here's the standard that we're going to operate with, okay? There's 2 things that we have to be world class at for us to be the best that we can possibly be. Number 1 is we have to be world class at speaking honestly, speaking the truth, which does not mean that what I'm saying, the honesty that I give or the truth that I give is the right thing, but I'm going to speak it as I see it, okay? And you need to speak it as you see it. We cannot withhold the truth or withhold honesty to try to protect our emotions or feelings. We've got to be great at speaking honestly and speaking the truth. But what would make that difficult? What makes it difficult to speak the truth? And I would ask you, Keith, let's assume you're on the staff. Keith, what might make it hard for you to speak the truth honestly to somebody else in this room, including me as the head coach? Why might you hesitate to tell the truth or be honest with me?
I think for a lot of people, in the experiences I had, it is, what's the reaction going to be? How is this going to be handled? And then how does that affect the relationship?
You got it, right? So and it's the same for all of us, right? And there's a bunch of other reasons, but that's the big one. The reason we would be hesitant to be honest or tell the truth is because we are concerned about how the other person will react and then what consequences that would bring out. So if I'm asking you, and again, I'm still in head coach mode here. If I'm asking you and I'm telling you, I'm not asking you to do, I'm telling you this is what we're going to do. If I am telling you we are going to be honest, we are going to tell the truth, and that is the expectation, and that I expect you to tell me the truth. And if you don't say anything and you don't talk about it, it's because that is not an honest opinion you have. You don't have anything to say about that. Therefore, who also has a responsibility to receive the truth well? I do, and you do. Because here's the exchange we have. There's 2 things. If we are going to be great truth tellers, then we all have to be great truth receivers. But which one of those holds the key to ensuring that this works? It's being a great truth receiver. Because if we are great truth tellers, but we're not great truth receivers, this whole thing blows up. Do you see that?
Yeah.
This whole thing explodes. I can tell you, Keith, if I got to give you some harsh feedback, right? If I don't think you're running your practice very well, like if I think that you aren't coaching it the way it needs to be coached, and I get on you and I tell you the truth, like I'm honest with you that you are not coaching it the way it needs to be done, and you get all mad and you get bent out of shape and you go and you defend yourself and you do all this, it doesn't matter how I've given you that feedback. It doesn't even matter if I am right or accurate. If you don't take it well, we're out of whack. So to do this, we have to be great truth tellers, we have to be great truth receivers, and the responsibility is on each of us to be great at receiving the truth. And so here's our standard. If you work here, you will tell the truth and you will speak honestly and you will not withhold the truth and honesty. If you work here, you will receive the truth and you will receive the honesty and you will listen, you will understand it, and you will process it. You will not react to it. You are allowed to feel whatever you feel, but you are not allowed to react to it. You're not allowed to reject it. You are not allowed to get defensive. You have to hear it, listen to it, and consider it. I'm not telling you that you have to agree. I am saying you have to think about it and process it, and you got to have a good perspective. And what that's going to do is we are going to get stronger as a staff because we will be better at speaking the truth and better at hearing the truth than anybody in America. We have to be able to tell each other the hardest stuff because this is a hard game. And here's the last thing, you guys. When we coach players, what do we tell them? We tell them, you got to be able to take hard coaching. We tell them, don't take it personally. We tell them, hey, we are going to get on you because we care about you and we are going to tell you what we see. We expect our players to receive this kind of honesty and take it really well. And we all know what it's like to try to coach a player that we struggle to tell the truth to because he is too fragile to hear the truth. And we have to try to figure out a way to coach him and dance around not to break his confidence. And we know what the truth is. We know what our honesty is, but we're struggling to coach that person because he's just very hard to tell the truth to without him kind of getting into an emotional mess. Don't be that guy. That's how I'd position it. Now, that's like my narrative version. The simple version is this. If you work here, you're going to speak the truth and you're going to speak honestly. And if you work here, you're going to receive the truth and receive it honestly. The burden is, the heavier responsibility is on us to receive honesty well. That's where the big burden is. The burden is not on the people to deliver feedback the way you like. It's not on us. You're not going to be a jerk, right? This is not a license to be abrasive on purpose. But what this is saying is that if you and I are in a relationship, if I don't receive feedback very well, that makes it much harder for you to give feedback well. Even if you are somebody who loves me and cares about me and is really good at feedback, it's just harder for you to give it to me because the window that you had to fit it into is so tiny that the chances that you fit it perfectly into the window in which I receive it exactly the way I want, it's so small that I don't get to throw out feedback just because I don't like the manner in which you said it or the way it makes me feel. That's crazy. But that's how we do it all the time. Like most of the coaches who are here and listening, right? Like if you work in school or you work in a company, you know what it's like to give somebody feedback and you work really hard to give the feedback in a way that doesn't trigger a bad response and then they respond poorly anyway. And you're like, hold on, why did I just work so hard to give this feedback well? And then the person just immediately took it awful. Why am I carrying that weight? It's not on me. So that's how I would position it. And then obviously you have to go start doing that. And then you got to go again. It's like anything else. You got to go through your development because coaches will hear that and then they will still be very nervous to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
They will. So when they tell you that, and so you got to solicit that stuff as you go. And then when they tell you something difficult or uncomfortable, or they give you feedback like, hey, I think you missed the mark on this, or I think you went too hard, or I think you did this, whatever, you have to demonstrate. I just had this conversation. You have to demonstrate, okay, right? Now I got to take that well, okay? I got to show them it's okay. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to shoot you down. I'm going to listen and I'm going to consider. I may not agree. I may not make the decision that you want, but I promise you I'm going to hear it well. I'm going to consider and I'm going to take you seriously. I may decide the other way because I'm the head coach, but nonetheless, it's not going to be because we didn't understand each other and because we didn't talk about it. We will. That's how I would position it.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice, and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal, and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
So I do want to talk a little bit about the style. And I think could point to a coach who you would see on TV. Maybe he's not on TV right now because he no longer has a job, but would be world class at, I don't hear what he's saying, but probably world class at telling the truth.
Yep.
But the delivery, the style probably shuts down 90% of the people having to hear that message. How much does style matter? You talked about that situation. I don't think you want to walk on eggshells. You talked about the player is fragile and you just can't say anything and then he doesn't take it well anyway. But at the same time, it isn't about giving you a license to be a jerk either. Yeah. So where is that line? Because I do think delivered poorly, you're going to miss that opportunity.
So 2 things. Where is the line? Everyone has to decide where it is. That's a style issue. Some people don't like the line when it's delivered calmly because it sounds condescending. Other people don't like the line when it's delivered loudly and aggressively because it feels disrespectful. We're talking style and preference. So There isn't a line because your style is different than my style, and the things that annoy you are different than the things that annoy me, and like that's just part of being in life. So, one, I think let's not try to, any of us, pretend that there is the same line everywhere for programs that I could communicate or we could draw. Everybody has to make their own. But this is why I think it's important to get this into the culture because, I mean, look, we're coaching football. We are playing football. There is zero chance that you coach and you play football and emotions don't rise and get heated and intense and you have conflict. I just heard Jason Kelsey talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was talking about he and Lane Johnson, when they were playing together, they didn't speak to each other for an entire offseason because they had a disagreement about how they were talking in the media about how the intensity of their practices. Okay. And like they yell at each other. And like, so this stuff happens. Okay. It happens. So that's why to me, it's building this culture and establishing this as soon as you can. It helps you navigate through those moments where, again, let's go back. If you and I have this culture and we find ourselves in a moment where we are fired up at each other, right? And I'm yelling at you and you're yelling at me and we are going at it, okay? If truth telling is strong, then that doesn't break us, right? Like we rise and we call and we know how to recover and we get back. And then what? Once we get out of that emotional state, I tell the truth, you receive the truth, you tell the truth, I receive the truth. And this whole dynamic is what keeps us strong. But if we don't have that dynamic, here's the thing. We're still going to have those emotional moments. We're still going to get heated. We're still going to speak to each other in ways that happens in football because that's just this game, right? If you don't want to speak to each other like that, go to church. This is football, right? We're not deacons at the local Baptist church. That's just not what this is. Like if you want pleasant good mornings, like go be a Walmart greeter. Like football, this is what's involved in football. This happens. So I'm not going to pretend like people hear me and they hear this stuff and they're like, oh man, like he doesn't ever raise his voice. I coached third grade football. I got after those boys. I got after them. But I always told them the truth. You're not playing well enough. This is going to get us beat. You're going to get one of your buddies hurt. You did a lot better. I'm so proud of you. I love you, dude. This is awesome. You're amazing. Hey, that is not a good teammate. You're better than that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I tell them the truth. So they know that when I'm talking to them, especially when I'm really, really hard, it's that we have this shared truth. So yes, if you do have somebody whose dynamic is getting out of whack, having this standard helps you recover from that, right? If you have somebody who just tends to kind of get heated, having this standard helps you recover. Where I don't mind coaching with you if you tend to get more heated. And because of that, like on a game day, I know guys like that. I work with guys like that. Where on game day, they are just level 10. Like Nick Saban, he was 10 on game day, right? Like he was up here, right? And if you're working for a guy like that, and you can have a standard like this or something close to it, I can acknowledge that on a game day. I'm good to go, right? And then if I feel like it's problematic, we have the standard where I can communicate that back and send it up the chain and say, hey, I think your style is getting in the way. I appreciate it. I know who you are, but you want me to tell you the truth, so I am. I think your style gets in the way on game day. I think you get so overheated that you don't communicate well. We kind of get lost and you mismanage some game situations because you're emotionally overwhelmed. That's what I see. That's what I observe. And then your job is to hear it, right? Like if you think I'm not credible, then you have to say so as well. Like, cause I'm telling you the truth. So if you think to yourself, you know what, BK's position, you haven't coached here long enough. You haven't seen it long enough. This is your first year here or whatever reason you think I lack credibility, say that back. Now I know when I give you this feedback, you think I lack credibility. So I think you're getting overheated. You think I lack credibility. We've both spoken it and we both heard it. Now we can go, that's better than all of that happening and nobody talking about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's way better. At least now we're dealing with what we need to deal with and we can kind of, go on our own developmental path as coaches throughout the season. And then we get to the off season and we know what we need to work on. And this reflection conversation after the season, we actually have the ammo that we need to work with instead of having to go back and talk about it from something that was buried a while ago.
Right. I think another product of the exit interview, when you look at it, it's kind of funny because we're asking our players, tell me the truth now. Like,
correct.
We didn't all season long.
Correct.
Because maybe we didn't provide that form. And that's not an easy one to get the truth from your players. So how do you do that well? How do you become great at making sure that, hey, we're going to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need to hear it back too.
Absolutely. Right. One is it takes a while. I say a while because there's I understand coach, well, how long does it take? It's always going to be a relative amount, right? If I knew what the exact amount of time was, I would just build a program so that it would take 9 months if you follow this, one trick program that I've got for you, right? Like that's not how it works. And then it also depends on the kinds of players that you have, right? There are groups of students, groups of athletes, groups of players, depending on where you are or the kinds of kids that are coming through. Not every class of kids is the same. Some kids they lean all the way into it. Some don't. So it's like anything else. Like you have to build up the trust and the confidence to take it there. But it's like anything else. It's like, how do you get stronger in the squat? Like, how does that happen? You got to step into the squat rack, do reps, recover, step back in the squat rack, do reps, recover. And how long do you do it? Years. And every time you do it, right, you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And so if you're coaching, do not be anchored or worried to how well you do this next season. Make your intention, I'm going to do this for the rest of my career, and I will get stronger and stronger and stronger at it, right? I think we do ourselves a disservice. This is why diet and exercise, it backfires on people, is they say, I want to be in this amazing shape by summer. And so next thing you know, they're in the spring and they're not that close. And now they're like, oh, never mind. And they stop working at it. As opposed to, I want to be in amazing shape for the rest of my life. Well, now my timeline and my horizon is different. Now I'm just strengthening this for the rest of forever. So for coaches, I would say, don't attach to how you do this next year. Attach to how you do this for the rest of your career and view this process right now as a strengthening window, right? And then you have your execution window, and then you have a strengthening window, and then you have an execution window. It's just like a weight room, just boom, boom, boom. And, I would hope, right, in my own life, now I am way better at this than I was in 2020 because it's 5 years later. I hope I'm way stronger at this. I know that I am, but I hope in 2030 that I'm way stronger than I am today. Right? That's how I want to be doing this. So you want to be doing this over time. Practically with players, you got to look at like, what is the consequence of when they tell you the truth, right? One of the things I tell people, like a script that I use is this. I use a script of, especially with like junior people, younger people, right? Whether it's somebody younger than me, like a younger associate, or with players, is I will say this. You know that feeling you have in your stomach when you want to tell somebody something, but you're nervous to say it to them, right? You know that feeling you have, right? And then you're like trying to find the courage to say it. You don't ever need to have that feeling to say something to me. If you feel that with me, all I want you to know is this. You're going to have to build that courage up to have certain conversations with people in your life. There are people where you will need that courage to say things. I'm not one of those people. So if you find yourself worrying or nervous or feeling that pit in your stomach, you find yourself kind of like saying, should I talk to him? And you're building up courage to come say something to me. Let all that energy go and just come talk to me. You don't need it. I'll listen. I'll trust you and I will listen, okay? Like I'll tell you the truth in response, but don't ever be worried about my reaction to something because I'm always the person that you can talk to. I'm all good. So what I want to do is I want to decompress the situation from the very beginning. Now, is that going to solve it for players? No, it's not going to solve it for all the players. For some of them, it will. But a lot of other players, what are they going to do? They're going to have to verify that what they heard from me is actually true. So then when a player comes to me, especially if it's the first time or the second time, what do we need to do? We need to follow through and deliver the experience we said we were going to deliver. We got to listen. We got to understand. We got to take them seriously. We got to have a good conversation. We got to hold our response, not react, not try to answer everything right away. We got to make that player feel super comfortable with whatever they shared, even and especially if what they shared was particularly critical of me. That's especially important because once they've verified, oh, I can in fact say something to him. I can in fact tell him a difficult truth. Now that wall comes down and we're passing information more freely back and forth. So that's what I do. I give them permission. I very specifically address that feeling and I do that because I want them to recognize. Like the easy thing to recognize is when you feel that pit in your stomach, right? It's just a good cue that I use. Like if you feel that pit, I tell my own kids that. If you feel that pit of like, oh, I don't know if I can tell dad this. Hey, if you feel that, just know I'm not somebody that you need. You'll feel that pit with other people and you'll need to pay attention to it, okay? Because they could react those ways you're afraid of, but not with me. Got me? Okay. Then when they say it, I got to verify it and then over time, that pit starts to go down in their stomach and with anything they want to say to me, they can just say it. And I've got people like that in my life that I can say anything to. Like I could tell them, hey, you are ruining your life. And I don't have any pit in my stomach about telling them they are making a huge mistake because we have that kind of established norm and standard between us.
I love it. It's a great way to think about it, a great script, as you said, to get that going, and especially with players, but I think obviously effective with your colleagues. If you're a head coach, effective with.
You can do the same thing with coach. You can do the same thing at home. And I would say this, just one last piece on that. So that's like, you're asking like what I would do. That's what I do, right? That's what I actually do. But here's the inverse, okay? Imagine you don't say that. And then imagine how many people have that feeling inside themselves and the things they're thinking about that they're not telling you if you don't do this. It's not like people won't have that feeling towards you. They will.
Right.
It's not like people don't have things to say to you. They do. It's not like people aren't hiding things from you. They are. Like, just so we're clear, like, not everybody in your life is telling you all of the things they think. Like, they're holding stuff back because they're concerned about how you would take it. And they don't want to push a button for you, like, because you do the same thing. So I would just have you consider, if you're like, oh man, that sounds whatever. If you find yourself anywhere resistant to that, all I would ask you is consider the consequences and how many people are walking around with pits in their stomach, anxiety about what to do or what to say if you don't give them that permission. And then imagine what happens on your staff if staff is carrying that around. What happens to your players? Do your players play faster or slower if they are having some of those thoughts? Do they practice harder or softer? Do they give you everything? Do they trust you? Do they believe? Do they do all the stuff that you want them to do if they're carrying that around inside of them? And I would say you'd be hard pressed to say yes. So if you find yourself resistant to it, just understand that this is pretty much binary, right? Like, they're either going to say it or they're not. And if you don't give them permission and you don't go through something like this, then that means they're just going to carry it around on the inside and never really tell you, and you're going to be blind to it all. And that's not a position you want to have yourself be in.
No. On the last part, we mentioned it earlier, the reflection side. And reflection has certainly transformed for me over time and how I handle it. And like, whether people agree with this one or not, one of the best tools I have to do reflection right now, and I've trained it to help me do this, is AI. You know, it started with me testing this probably over a year ago and just dealing with a situation. I had a lot of things rattling around my head. I started with, this is what I believe. This is my philosophy in this particular realm of my life. Sharing that, and then here's the situation and here's my thoughts on it. And you have to put some time into it. But it does really, I think, allow you, when you don't have that time to have a person or somebody who's unbiased, it is an unbiased listener. And you do, I think, get some insight and you can work through some problems. So I do that quite a bit. I also, old school, write things down, journal, and reflect on them that way too. So I think reflection is an art. What do you like to do in that regard, especially thinking of coaches this time of the year? You just finished up something big, again, regardless of the results that you had, positive or not what you wanted. Recommendations for how to approach that.
I'm a big believer in, one, I think more people just in general would benefit from using AI the way that you're describing. A conversational format, sharing your perspective, your opinion, what you're doing, asking for some feedback, treating AI like a thought partner instead of Google on steroids. Google on steroids is fine, right? It has its function. But treating AI as a thought partner, I do this all the time, just because it has access to things. It can point me to resources. It can give me considerations. I am agnostic for where a good principle comes from or where the input comes from. It doesn't matter. It could come from somebody, a human being that I'm not a big fan of. If it's good, it's good. If it's true, it's true. If it's useful, it's useful. So treating AI like a thought partner, I'm a huge fan of that. I do it all the time. I use Grok in voice mode and just have conversations. I'll just chat for a while about something. Like, you know, it's got like doctor mode and therapy mode and argumentative mode. And like,
It's
sometimes
awesome.
I will test something out and like, I'll put it in argumentative mode, and then I will like take something that I am and trying to teach and share, and I will have it argue with me so that I can learn where the weak spots in my positioning are and what maybe some other perspectives and opinions would be. Because even if I think it's being irrational, that's what human beings are. Right?
Yeah.
Human beings like have the craziest opinions in the world that don't follow any rationality. And so I view it very much like that. So I'm a huge fan of what you're doing with that and encourage everybody to lean into that, because that's also kind of fun, and you'd be amazed how quickly you can get your mind expanded. Number two is I'm a big fan of, I anchor myself to cause and effect. I believe in simplicity more than anything else. And then cause and effect is the nature of the world, right? The world operates on cause and effect. Every effect has a cause. And so I always stay tethered in my reflection to cause and effect. And I look at consequences and outcomes and I ask myself, where did that come from? Where did that come from? It didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere. And everything comes back to behavior. So I was doing a radio show last week, and I guess I was texting with someone that I do a radio show with, and we're talking about a college football coach who's having a tough year. And I was texting my buddy, and he was texting me back, sort of like lamenting. And I'm like, man, what is going on? Like, this is, and I was kind of looking at a bunch of different things. I'm like, this is embarrassing. Like, this is just surprising. It's embarrassing. And he'd asked me the question. He's like, where do you think this comes from? Like, what do you think the root of this is? And I said, like, it's the same root. It's the only possible route it possibly could have been. And that's head coaching. Because if the thing is going on in the program, the head coach either brought it in and didn't recognize it, or brought it in and it was better and it's gotten worse since it's been in, and the head coach has a system that is turning good players, good coaches, good plays into dysfunction. But either way, this is a head coach's duty and responsibility. So everything comes back to behavior, right? If you're like, oh, we have a talent issue. Okay, sure. But behavior is needed to overcome talent. Great. So if we have a talent issue, why isn't our behavior better? And why are we talking about a talent issue on the back end? And if we knew our talent was mediocre or low, what did we do to strengthen our discipline and intensity and understanding of the game and the speed of our players processing? Like, why aren't we better at training the non-talent side of this to be able to make up for some of our talent gaps? If you did and all that was great and it's just purely a talent gap, then you can recognize and understand, all right, we are purely in a talent gap and there is absolutely nothing in our power to have affected these outcomes whatsoever. That's rarely the case, right? But I always trace it back to cause and effect behavior. Next piece, if you're tracing it back from behavior, is I'm tracing it back to how did that behavior exist? Why was that behavior allowed to continue? Why did it happen? Why didn't it get corrected? Why didn't it get coached? Why wasn't the behavior stronger? Why wasn't it more skilled? And then what was the dynamic that led to that happening? And so that's how I like to cause and effect reverse engineer it. And you can do that for anything, right? Like if you're like, man, we didn't have great third down conversions. We were too rough in the red zone. Okay, well, great. Cause and effect. Why? Oh, it's, well, we didn't have a running back we could count on. Okay, why didn't we recognize that? Why did we build an offense that relied on a running back that we didn't have? Right? Like you just keep going back. It's always going to come back to behavior. So even if it's something technical or talent or schematic or strategic, it's still going to come back to something behavior, because go back to Ohio State, Michigan last year. It's a great example. Okay. Ohio State won the national championship. Okay. They were going into the Michigan game. What were they favored by? 22, 21, something like that. All right. And they lost, what'd they lose? 13-10? Why did Ohio State lose the Michigan game last year? Michigan couldn't throw the ball. Everybody knows why Ohio State lost that Michigan game last year. Why?
Yep.
Coaches got right here. They got caught behaviorally trying to scheme the game into some kind of way, and they got caught up trying to either prove a point or they wanted to run the football and win a certain particular kind of way. And rather than just doing what they were best in America at, they did something else. And had they just done what they were great at, they would have won that game 30-3. But instead, they tried to run the football and do this and do that. It was behavior.
Right.
It wasn't scheme or talent. If it was scheme, which it was some scheme, right? But it was scheme because of the choices that were made. So you look back, like, why did we make those choices? Like, why did we choose to play the exact opposite of what our talent was really good at?
Yeah.
And it cost them, right? And then, by the way, and you know the story, right? After that game, that team went back to the Woody that next week. And what did they do? They had a 4-hour meeting. And what did they do with that 4-hour meeting?
Told the truth.
They told the truth.
Yep.
Finally. And once they told the truth and they listened to the truth and everybody said the stuff they had to say and everybody heard the things that they needed to hear, what did that team go do? Executed better than maybe any college football team over a 4-game stretch has executed and performed. One of the greatest runs in college football history. But what did it take? It took making the biggest mistake on the biggest stage in the biggest moment, going through the most painful loss of Ryan Day's career, to finally usher in that level of honesty and truth in speaking and receiving. Do not force yourself to go through that process in pain before you take this seriously. So that's my thing, is cause and effect. Every effect had a cause. Every consequence came from somewhere. And if you're not drilling it down to behavior and individual decisions, choices, and actions, you have not actually found the cause.
Yeah.
The cause is always human choices, actions, and decisions.
Yeah, great example. Good to have you back in Ohio, back in Columbus there.
Nice to be back. I mean, listen, it's gray, but
I see that same gray sky here in Avon Lake.
listen, we don't come here for the sunshine, do we?
No, but a great example. And I know you're close with guys in the program. Like I've texted Key numerous times this season, telling them like, man, you guys are doing such a good job of not getting caught up in the noise and calling a game. Hart's doing a great job in calling a game that they need to call. And it's been consistent. I've seen that consistency through the whole season. You hear the noise of, they don't, but we as fans sit back, the noise of the commentators. Yeah, well, Ohio State only has X amount of rushing yards, like blowing these guys out. They're not running the ball because the team they're playing is telling them to do it. Like they see the opportunities and they're maximizing it. But it all goes back to that point where they told the truth.
By comparison. And again, this is part of telling the truth, right? We look at this, like no judgment or frankly, even criticism, just observation. What do you think the quality of truth-telling in the Clemson football program has been for the last 8 months? Do you think they've been at the height of speaking the truth and hearing the truth? Do you think if you audited that program that you would see world-class levels of honesty and expression and honesty and receiving full back and forth truth?
No.
I'm going to guess you wouldn't see that. And I think that's I'd be pretty confident in that guess, right? And I can't say why, I can't say how that dynamic happened, but it's pretty obvious. Like there's no reasonable explanation to have that much talent on a roster and then have these kinds of results in a conference like the ACC right now. That those two things just don't mesh. So there's something behaviorally going on that is very obviously getting in the way. And every problem begins with an unwillingness to speak the truth or an unwillingness to hear it. That's where problems start. In marriages, in coaching, in dynamics, in countries, right? Like every time we pretend or don't talk about the truth or don't see the truth or don't want to hear the truth, big problems emerge out of that. And then they stay under the surface because we're still not addressing them. And that's how a thing happens like that, right? I wouldn't be surprised if that was happening at Penn State, right? Where something was going on that they just couldn't quite get addressed for whatever the dynamic and whatever the reason was, right? Now, maybe in some cases, and I think maybe more likely at Penn State. Now, I'm assessing and observing things I don't absolutely know. But again, I work with enough programs. I've been doing this long enough. Sometimes there is nothing to say that you and I on a staff are good to work together. So I might share a truth with you and you might hear it. You might share a truth with me and I might hear it. And we might discover through that process that, you know what? This thing of us working together it's not good for either one of us. And we need to be working in some different places because we just believe in some different things. And my way can work, your way can work, but they just don't really work together. That's fine. That's fine. Right? And if you can figure that out in a season and everybody's good to go and we have that, let's find that out sooner rather than later so that everybody can go succeed and compete the way they want to compete, which is amazing. It's awesome. Right? So maybe some of that was going on at Penn State, right? Maybe some of that's going on at Clemson. But to me, I think a Clemson right now looks like a case study in, boy, it feels like they've become detached from the truth. Willingness to speak and willingness to hear it. Maybe more so than Penn State. Penn State feels like maybe some other stuff was happening, just some misses probably on the recruiting trail and stuff. But yeah, like to me, that's a case study where you kind of compare what Ohio State did last year. It cost them and they corrected really fast. And then what looks like not correcting it fast enough, say it like a Clemson, and next thing you know, it can spiral very, very quickly. Now they're faced with their own moment, right? Like they're going to have to figure out what do we need to do to get back to where we've been? Yeah. What has to happen? And that's a big test of Dabo right now. And I'm really curious to see how he responds.
Yeah. And the last time we talked, we didn't have the environment that really, it makes this so critical to tell the truth and be good at it. Because we're not talking anymore about programs that have guys for 4 years. You might have some of your best players for 9 months. The only way you're going to get a good culture is to make that part of the culture.
Yeah.
You have to. Because how do you get that guy to be a part of who you are?
Yeah.
Being worried about, what do I say?
And by the way, and a guy who plays well for you and then is starting to get a lot of attention from other programs and thinking about going into the portal. Or if you're at the high school level, the thing I hear consistently from parents and teachers and coaches, right, is how hard these kids are to work with now and and all this different stuff. And if you're thinking to yourself, this is good in theory, or this is good, that could work in college and that could work in pros, but not in high school. No, this high school is exactly where this is necessary. it's exactly where this is necessary because of the frustrations that you have. Yeah. You have to be good at it. You have to be skilled at it. You can't just go in and say it and then come and deliver blunt messages of the truth that people don't enjoy and then be like, well, you got to take the truth, right? Well, no, like that's why you have to communicate this. You have to express this. Like you have to it has to be a conversation where we want to talk back and forth and have the truth. Sure, there'll be some discomfort, but the better you do this, the longer you do this, the more skilled you get at it. If you're a competitor, this builds something around your program that takes a while to build and it is hard to do, right? Like Ohio State has this right now. Like Ohio State has a moat around their program where they have this crazy amount of talent. And again, I look at there's not many programs that have this. Alabama had it. They don't have it now, but they had it under Saban. But that Ohio State has it now. Georgia has it. They have it. They're probably right there as well, although they've got a couple issues. But when you have that much talent and you're able to be that honest with it and make it work that hard and keep them there and keep them focused, that culture is like nobody can replicate that. They can copy your plays. They can copy your recruiting strategy. They can copy all kinds of, they can copy your roster development. They can copy your game management. But when you have a culture of guys that do that and listen and trust and compete, they can't execute what you have, even if they've got your playbook.
Right.
Somebody just saw somebody the other day. I loved it, right? A great play that isn't executed very well is a terrible play. It's a great play is just the one you execute well. So execution also comes down to speed and trust and confidence and preparation and skill and belief in what we're doing and effort. And that stuff emerges out of how hard everybody goes and what they're doing it for, which ties back to all of this. So if you're thinking that this is a college or a pro thing, not a high school thing, I would just encourage you, man, like, no, this is one of the biggest competitive advantages that you can build in high school. And the earlier you start, the harder you work at it, the more obsessed you get with this, the shorter the cycle is before you actually start seeing the dividends. And man, once you get this in place, and once you commit to it and you work at it and you're constantly working at it and you bring the doesn't matter, get better. And no matter what happens in the previous year, you get even better the next year. I promise you 3, 4, 5 years from now, you are going to wake up and you are going to have a powerhouse program culturally and execution wise that other people are going to go, man, I want that. And you're like, yeah, well, it takes a while. So get going, right? It takes a while. So you'll get dividends early, but it takes a while to get it to really where you want it to be. Start now, because you don't want to wake up 5 years from now and then realize, oh, shoot, I should have done that thing I heard on the podcast back in 2025.
Yeah. Well, I love these conversations. It reminds me, I don't want to wait 5 years to have the next one. Great to have you back here. Always great insight that you share, BK. For our listeners, since it's been a while where you told them how to find your stuff, please share how they could find you, the things you're doing, etc.
Yeah, easy to find on social. Brian Kight, Kight. You can find me. Username is @TBrianKight. And then you can read my free newsletter, Daily Discipline, at dailydiscipline.com. And then my website is tbriankight.com. And obviously work with lots of teams and programs. We do coaching for coaches. We do advisory. We help coaches do some of these year-end kind of reflection things. We work with players or teams and help install systems for building culture and strengthening skills like focus and discipline and courage and navigating uncertainty and all the behavior skills that drive that stuff. So if that's interesting to you, come on and check us out, reach out, shoot me a DM on X or Twitter or Instagram, wherever you are, whatever you want to call it. I'm right there. So would love to connect with anybody. And I love this sport. I love the development side of this. I love the competition side of this. I'm a locker room guy. I still get to pinch myself that I get to do this line of work, man, because this is what I've always wanted to do. Back when I was playing college ball, this was my vision, and I'm living the life I want to be living every single day, contributing to this thing. So I just appreciate being here.
Well, we appreciate having you, Brian. We'll talk again soon. Thank you. If this conversation pushed you, challenged you, or gave you a clearer picture of what real leadership looks like, take the next step. Start by raising the standard inside your own staff room. Build a place where truth is normal, not rare. Your team will feel it, your players will feel it, and your results will show. If you want more conversations like this, more tools, and more insight from coaches who live these standards every day, subscribe to the podcast and stay connected with us at Coach and Coordinator. Let's keep building programs that earn their success and compete with discipline and purpose.